Hey guys, I'm popping on here live because it's been a little while since I've done a live. I wanted to pop in here and just say hey to you guys and talk about some topics that came up tonight during my group program, the Create Your Light Academy. So much juicy goodness came through today, so I figured it could be topics that start us off. And then if you have any questions as we go through, feel free to pop them down here in the chat and I'll answer any questions that you have about spirituality. Anything that you want to know about shadow work, about past lives, about connecting into spirit, crystals, the works. So let me know what questions you have, but I did want to start off with this one piece of information. So tonight we were talking about connecting in with spirit, and there's so much spirit activity that is happening around us all the time. Spirit is always with us, trying to show that they're there, trying to give us signals and signs that they're constantly with us and trying to forge that connection. And when we're not paying attention to it, the signs just kind of go over our head. We're not really picking up the pieces on that. But when we are trying to pay attention to it, it's easier to forge that connection. So if you are trying to connect with any loved ones that have passed away, the best thing to do period is to create some kind of language that you can use with them. Like literally coming up with some kind of signs that they can give you to show them that you're going to be looking for it. And then also to let them know that you're listening, that you're actively open to receiving some kind of sign from spirit. People do this all the time with spirit numbers like 1111 and 222. Those are kind of cliche. I like ones that are a little bit harder. And the reason why is because you know that they're not bullshit when they come. Like you live in an area where there's no blue jays and you ask them to send you a blue jay. And then the next day you get a letter from someone and on it is like a big stamp of a blue jay. That's an obvious sign versus hoping for 1111. And then like at 1108, you're like, is the clock there yet? At 1109, is the clock there yet? Just create something strong to really forge that connection so that you can pay attention to those signs. All right, so a bunch of you guys are hopping on now. I'm answering any questions that you guys have about spirituality, connecting with spirit, past lives, or shadow work. So drop them in the comments as you guys come. I actually just wrapped up doing Create Your Light Academy, which is my group program where we do shadow work. Something really interesting came up tonight that you guys might be interested in. So while you guys are coming up with questions you want to ask, I'll just share this with you all. So we all have a vibration. Everybody carries one. We are made of electrons, and this is just scientific fact. We all vibrate, and you can measure that vibration. Some people vibrate at a faster rate than others. That vibration kind of looks like a very dense line. Some people vibrate a little bit lower. That line is more spaced out, right? And so when we're vibrating at a really high level, this is the idea of being high vibe, where people are attracted to you. You can manifest things very quickly. When you're not feeling that, when you're feeling heavier and down, like think about anybody that you've ever known that's had depression, or if you can't think of anyone off the top of your head, think of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, where it's almost like a weight is over everybody, or it's like the air gets sucked out of the room. That is obviously a lower vibration. It's a heavier, denser energy. So here's where this gets interesting. Spirits also carry vibrations. And so loved ones who have passed on, who kind of hang out in this realm, also carry a vibration. Some of them higher vibration, some of them lower vibration. And so when you have really dense, heavy energy, like let's say things have not been going well for you recently, like relationship ended, job isn't really secure, you're not feeling like yourself, your energy is dense, you are more likely to attract in spirits that have that same energetic vibration, that lower, denser, heavier energy. Now remember, this isn't evil, this isn't bad, it's not dark in any way, it's just heavier. And so you're going to feel that. You're going to feel just a little bit off and not like yourself. Some signs of this are you could be dropping stuff or technology stops working, and it's not a Mercury retrograde thing. It's just like a heavy energy thing. You can feel like you're not really speaking eloquently when normally you speak fine. Things just feel off. It's usually a sign that something or someone in this case is attached to you and needs to leave. So for everybody that's popping on, I'm answering any questions that you guys have about spirituality, about shadow work, about past lives. You can drop them in the comments. anything that comes up for you guys. And for those of you who are totally new to my world, I'm Danielle Massi. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, master shadow worker, and past life regressionist. So I can answer questions about any of that sort of stuff. I love popping on here and doing these lives because the questions that come through are questions that a lot of people have. Anything that you're thinking, anything you want to know, I'm sure other people in this group are going to have the same questions. So there's so much that we can learn together here as we go through this. So drop your questions below. Don't be shy. In the beginning, there's going to be one or two people who ask, hey, Melissa. And then by the end, there's going to be so many that I'm going to have to keep scrolling back up. So be the first one. Start us off. And as you're doing that, I'll just tell you guys a little bit more about shadow work because it is my favorite topic by far. Shadow work is the process of going into the unconscious mind. What that means is that when we have, let's put it this way, think about an iceberg, right? Think about a big iceberg. Your conscious mind is like the part of the iceberg that's above the surface of the water. It's really clear, you can see it. And what happens with your conscious mind is you are fully aware of everything within the conscious. You know the things that you're thinking, you know how to change them. Then we have the stuff that's just below the surface of the water. You can still see it. Like if you were on a boat and you're looking down over on the side of the water, you can see the part of the iceberg that's underneath. You can't see all of it, but you can definitely see some. And so when you're looking down at that, that is subconscious. This is stuff that you can still see. It's a little bit distorted, a little whacked out, but you can still impact it. You can change it. When you go to see a therapist, this is the area that you're usually working most on, trying to change your subconscious behaviors, bringing them up to the surface that you can alter them. Then we have the vast majority of it, which is your unconscious mind, which if we're using our iceberg analogy, is like 90% of the iceberg, which is all way underneath the surface of the water, so far down that you cannot see it. Your unconscious mind is everything that makes you you. It's the earliest moments of your life. It's all the things that your brain has done to forget. And so it's still there. It's just inaccessible, or you feel like it's inaccessible because no one's ever taught you how to do it before. And that's what shadow work is all about. It's about going into that unconscious mind. When you go down into that space, you're still accessing the brain. It's all there, ready to go. You're just looking at it for the first time as an adult person later on, so you can put the pieces of the puzzle together. So let's just say you have an insane fear of heights and you don't know where it came from. During a shadow work session, you might see yourself as a 4-year-old climbing up on one of those like cute little rock hills that they have at parks sometimes and falling down on your way up the side of it. As a kid, that might have felt like a 1 mile fall down, when in reality, it's like a 1 foot fall, but that is trauma. The reason why we want to do that and why we want to go into those unconscious moments and pull that shadow up is because the brain has the ability to compartmentalize. It can stuff that unconscious stuff down and bury it, but your body can't. Your body can't push that stuff down. It can't make it go away. It can't stop it. So it's easy for you to get triggered. And you're going to see this in your own life. Like when someone says something and it just kind of just tweaks you the wrong way. And everyone around you is like, no, it doesn't bother me. Someone just said, I'm scared of bridges. Yeah, if it tweaks you and you're like, why is nobody else afraid of this? Why is nobody else bothered by it? And that should be every alarm in your head going off like, ding, ding, ding. Like we hit some unconscious material that needs to be addressed. That's what shadow work is all about. So now the questions are rolling through. I'm going to just start at the very beginning and address them in chronological order, but feel free to ask me any questions about shadow work. Okay, so let's start with shadow work. How do you do it? Great question. So the way that we do shadow work is we want to access the unconscious mind. The way that we do that is by getting you into what are called theta brainwaves. Theta brainwaves are the brainwave pattern that you're in when you're kind of drifting off to sleep. You're not fully asleep. This is where you're like thinking about what you have to do tomorrow, but you're so tired that you don't really want to get out of bed. If you guys know what that feels like, you know it's like your whole body's really calm, your brain is really relaxed, but you could drift off to sleep, but you're not there yet. When you're in that state, the brain is unable to keep a lid on the unconscious mind. It's wide open. And so it's easy from that space to reach down and pull out unconscious memories, things you're holding on to that you don't realize are there. So what we do during a shadow work session is we meditate so that we get you into that theta brainwave state. I recommend doing it sitting up so that you don't actually fall asleep, because we don't want you to actually fall asleep as you're doing this. Keeping the body really aligned and active, keeping those chakras really stacked on top of each other as you do it. And then once you're in that theta brainwave state, I get you to the point where you can see what is happening within your own memory. And then I kind of nudge you in and let you take the reins. My gift is that I can see what you see. So let's just say I'm just hopped off a session with the girls in my Create Your Light Academy program, which is a group shadow work program that I do. So one of the girls talked about going into her grandparents' basement when she was 3 years old. And as she's going through it, I can see it. I'm seeing it with her. I see the rust-colored carpet. I see the cement poles. I see the wood paneling on the walls. Like, I'm there with her in 1984, right? So as we're going through that and we're having that experience, there might be things that she's missing, but I want her to fully experience it for herself. I don't want to tell her what she's seeing. I don't want to tell her the things that she's missing necessarily, because I want her to feel it in her body. Her body's going to take her to what it is that she needs to know. If there's something really big that she's missing, and this happens all the time in past life sessions in particular, I'll give a little nudge. So like, let's just say you're in a past life session and you're seeing what's in front of you, and you're going to see it. Like, you're going to see it in your mind. The same way if I tell you right now to think about a banana, you can see it in your head. It might not be perfect. It might be a little bit murky, but you can conjure up the image of it in your head. So you're seeing your past life in front of you. Let's say there's something just behind you or someone that you need to pay attention to. I might say something like, let's turn around and see what's on the other side. Tell me what it is that you see immediately in front of you. So I'll just gently nudge. That way you can trust that everything that you're seeing is genuine. No one's putting any thoughts into your head. There's no suggestions. It is you that is experiencing it. And when you do, because it is a memory, it is going to be so vivid. It's going to be like it happened to you yesterday. Even if it's something that happened to you when you were 4, or if it happened to you in a past life. So hopefully that explains it. And then what we do as we do the shadow work is we really want to focus on your body. Our bodies hold trauma. Just like I said before, the brain can stuff stuff down, but the body cannot. So we want to keep you really grounded and really calm. So I'm always monitoring your breath. I'm looking to see, are you doing this? Are you really tense? Is your breathing getting more rapid? Are you starting to feel a little lightheaded? Am I seeing you kind of wobble a bit? Am I seeing you start to get scared and curl in on yourself? Body language. As I start to notice those things, I bring you back to that homeostasis place. Get you to bring the shoulders back, to calm the breath, to center back into the body. And what happens when you see something traumatic, but your body stays calm, is we are actually changing it on a cellular level. So we're changing your neural pathways in your brain, and we're changing what's called the subconscious feedback loop, which is a loop that connects your brain and your body. It's like a feedback loop that tells it how to react and how to think about future events. So we're changing it so you won't be triggered in the future. That is the really quick answer to the question of what is shadow work, but I hope that that explains it. If you have more questions, definitely don't hesitate. Okay, let me go to the next question. So, are you able to do anything for us on a live? Yeah, but I do think that what I will do in the future, if you guys are down for it, is actually schedule that so that you guys can create some uninterruptible space. The reason why that's important is if you have kids running around, or if you're waiting for a phone call, like things are just busy, you're not going to be able to drop into that theta brainwave state. I would rather schedule a time and go like, let's all hop on here at 4:00 tomorrow, and then close things off and do it that way, which is something that I do all the time on Facebook. So if you guys aren't following me on Facebook, you can find me at I am Danielle Massi, I-A-M Danielle Massi, just like my TikTok name. And what I do in my Facebook group, which is called the Clarity Club with Danielle Massi, is we do meditations like this all the time. I actually have a huge event coming up in December called the 21 Days of Healing, where I'm bringing in 21 of the best healers in the world, myself included. And we're going to be doing sessions like this all throughout the first 21 days of December leading up to the winter solstice. I'm so excited for that event. It's going to be insanely transformative. And one of the things we're going to be doing is some past life work. So if it's something you're interested in, you're going to want to hop in there and get on that. Okay, so how do I see what you've been through before? Awesome question. So we all have gifts, every single one of us. So don't think I'm up here on some pedestal, because I'm not, right? You have spiritual gifts. even if you're not fully connected to them yet. We just have different gifts. Everyone has something that they're born with, if not multiple things. So the most basic form of these gifts are called the clairs. These are your ability to see things, to hear things, to smell things, to taste things, to touch things that are not in your immediate vicinity, and also to know things. That's actually the most common one. So for instance, clairaudience is the ability to hear things that are not there. Most people hear things all the time, like you hear the creaking of the wood on your hardwood, or you hear like the wind kind of moving subtly, or you hear like music coming from another room, and you don't second guess it, you don't question it. And the thing you might not realize is nobody else hears it but you. It's just you, but because it's something that you hear all the time, you're not pointing it out. You're not bringing it to anybody else's attention. If you did, you might find out that you are the only one who hears those things because it's spirit. So that's clairaudience. And if you really strengthen that gift, you can start connecting to spirit in that way, where they tell you things and instruct you and let you know things that'll help you on your path or help other people, which is where some mediums get their information from. So we all have gifts. Clairvoyance is also a gift. Clairvoyance is the ability to see things that are not in this 3D reality, like that are not physically there in front of you. Clairvoyance is one of my strongest gifts. So I can see things. I can see ghosts. I've been able to see them since I'm a kid. I can see what you see when you meditate. The way that I do it, and this is, I don't know how technical this is, but I'm just going to tell you how I do it. We all have a higher self, which is a spirit guide who is essentially your soul. I talk to my higher self, who talks to your higher self, and they just kind of pass the message, almost like we're creating our own little feedback loop. So the message is coming up through you to your higher self, over to mine, down to me. And when that happens, I can see everything that you're seeing and just bring your attention to anything that you might be missing. So that's something I had to work on a lot. This is not something that is easy. And don't listen to anybody who says like you're born with these gifts and like you're only good if you've been doing it since you were little, because that's bullshit. Like you could have what you think are no gifts right now, and you could work hard on bringing them to life. It's like a muscle. And the more you flex that muscle and the more you practice, the more you connect, the better you're going to be at it. So for anybody who's new to this, don't let that deter you. Like you can do all these things. Okay, so moving down to the next question. Let's see. Does shadow work help heal? Yes. So I worked as a licensed therapist before I did this work, a licensed psychotherapist, and I did that for a little over a decade. And what I saw as a therapist was that people would come in with problems and we worked to get through the subconscious stuff. You know, that's like just below the surface. We'd work on their behaviors. We'd work on the memories they could conjure up. We'd change the things we could. We'd move them out of their old shitty habits and they would move on. But it never felt like we were getting to the root. It's almost like if you have a garden with a bunch of weeds growing out of it, a lot of the time therapy for me felt like kind of cutting them off. We're like right at the point where they hit the dirt. But we couldn't actually get to the root. And so eventually they would come back to therapy like a year later, sometimes 3 years later, and go, okay, this thing is happening again, right? Like what we see with addiction, where somebody can kind of go cold turkey and really sober up and change their life. But it's so fragile. Like if the wind blows the wrong way, they're going to just wind up back doing the old thing. Shadow work gets to the root, because what we're doing is we're really going down to the moments that your body created this trauma, where it's holding them, and the neural pathways and how they're all connected through that subconscious feedback loop, we're interrupting it. We're cutting it off at the knees. And when we do that, we can kind of recreate it. The process in the most technical terms is called synaptogenesis and synaptic pruning. Synaptic pruning is where we're getting rid of the old neural pathways, kind of like pushing them out of the way, telling the brain it has no reason to keep them anymore. And then synaptogenesis is the creation of new ones. That's how you really create change. And that's what shadow work does. All right, so let me find the next question. Sorry, I like to do this chronologically so everybody gets a chance. I have so much anxiety and I don't want to rely on medication. In all my years as a therapist, I rarely ever saw a case. And that's not to say that I never saw a case. It was rare that I ever saw a case where someone should be on medication long term. Because our bodies are meant to feel things. And when we're getting information from our body, like anxiety, that is a warning sign. It's supposed to be telling you something. The same way your body tells you when to pee or when to eat or when to drink water. Anxiety is a warning sign. It's a symptom of a larger thing. And it's telling you, hey, you got to pay attention to this. There's something you need to find here. And so if you feel like you have constant anxiety, if you feel like you are stuck in it, like it's almost like you're stuck in sludge that's weighing you down, that is a huge sign that it's time to do some shadow work, because then you can actually get to the root and retrain your body to not feel that anxiety reaction when it comes up. And just so you guys know what the anxiety reaction looks like in the body, what happens with anxiety is you experience a trigger, something that resembles one of your earliest issues. And when you see that and you hear it and you smell it, all your senses are coming into play. It triggers the release of chemicals in your body. And the chemicals for anxiety are adrenaline and cortisol. And they are like a deadly duo when it comes to anxiety. And they pump throughout your nervous system. When that pumping happens, it tells the body to react in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which means that your body has to do something to survive. Now, I used to teach at Penn State University, and one of my favorite lessons was teaching about this, because I would talk about caveman days and how back then it was really important that we experience anxiety, because we would go through hunter-gatherer phases, right? Where like most of the time we're living on like forage stuff, like berries and roots and leaves and whatnot. And then every once in a while, and it would not happen often, there would be some kind of animal that could be hunted. And even more rarely, there would be an animal that saw us as food. When that happened, we needed to be on the alert. You had to be ready. You had to be ready to move or to play dead or to act in ways that were more animalistic. It was a necessary survival skill. The body learned it because it had to. There is no reason for you as a freshman in college to be feeling like a bear is charging at you when you have a first day of class. It's just disproportionate. It doesn't make any sense. And yet your body feels it at like a level 11. And now think about anything that makes you anxious. Think about the things that trigger you where it's like you're through the roof with the anxiety. You shouldn't be feeling that way. You should only be feeling that way in a life or death situation, something that is really heart-wrenching where you need to respond. Now, if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, you might actually be so far beyond that you just feel numb. And I've seen a lot of people feel that too. Shadow work gets to the root of all of this and makes it go away. So if you don't want to be on anxiety medication forever, shadow work is your next move. Okay, so next question. Hey, I'm glad that I'm live too. Stepmom fun. What's up? Okay, does shadow work deal with past life traumas? Yes, it does. So this is actually one of my favorite pieces of shadow work. If anybody missed it in the beginning, shadow work is the process of going into the unconscious mind, which means it's everything buried beneath the surface, everything that is so deep that you can't even see that it's there. And that includes past life memories. Every single one of us, every one of you watching this has had past lives, and not just one, many past lives. And when we have past lives, we are born into this life remembering them. And what happens is over time we forget. The reason for that is because the brain has no reason to remember those if there's no reason to. This is that synaptogenesis and synaptic pruning thing that I was talking about before. So think about learning to play the piano at 5 years old. If you continue playing on until you're 20, your brain will actually wire itself in such a way and allot its neural pathways in such a way that there's more space for the muscles that connect to your fingers, because you need to be able to move up and down on a keyboard. If you're not playing piano, there's no reason for that to be there. Your brain won't shape itself that way. It'll put more attention to things that it needs to pay attention to. So if you're born remembering your past lives and you're not talking about it and you're not paying attention to it and you're not really connecting in with it, there's no reason for the brain to really keep it there. What'll happen is it'll store it within the unconscious mind instead. I mean, you can recall it later, but it doesn't really need to take up that frontal lobe space. You don't need to recall it on a regular basis. If you had really cool parents who heard you talking about past lives and they just checked in and go, oh, tell me more about that, and they can check in with you every once in a while, or they let you talk about it, you are more likely to remember your past lives. If you're someone who doesn't have a lot of fear and talking to the adults around you, you're more likely to remember your past lives. If you look through TikTok, I come across these every day, and obviously it's because of the algorithm, like the shit that I pay attention to. But there's so many stories of kids who talk about their past lives. I've even had this with my own kids where they've talked about very casually their past life experiences. And because of who I am, I'll just kind of, in a very non-emotional way, because I don't want to lead them or make them feel rewarded for bringing that up, because then it could lead to them embellishing or changing it. I'm just going to go, oh, cool, tell me about it. The same way if they were to tell me they had a good day at school, okay, tell me about it. It's just a way that makes it safe for them to go there. So yeah, past lives are a huge part of shadow work. Okay, let's see. Spirit banana phone. Let's see. Any videos we can watch to start shadow work? Yeah, if you actually go onto my YouTube channel, which is everything's under the same name, or into my Facebook group, The Clarity Club with Danielle Massi. Actually, that's probably the best place. If you go onto The Clarity Club with Danielle Massi, it's the only one that exists with that name. I have literally probably like 100 videos of me talking about how to do past life work with explicit details. I also have a shadow work journal that you guys can get off of Amazon. The link is in my bio. It's called the Shadow Seekers Journal. If you search that in Amazon, it'll be the first one that pops up. It's a white cover, black writing, and that'll help you do your shadow work. So you can really start diving into this process. But the main way that it's going to work is you're going to meditate to get yourself into that theta brainwave state, and then you're going to prompt yourself to let information start to come through. Everyone can do shadow work. You don't need someone to do shadow work with you. However, it can be tricky when there's heavier stuff that comes up. So if you feel unsafe, if you feel scared, if you feel overwhelmed, work with a guide. It's the safest way to do it. Preferably someone who is trauma informed, because they'll know how to keep your body safe during the process so that you don't unintentionally re-traumatize yourself. So important. Okay, just join now. Curious when your next group shadow work is. So the next group starts in January. We're pre-enrolling right now. If you're interested, you can just send me a message on here. I take 10 women at a time, no more than that. And the reason why is because we're doing some really deep, intimate, vulnerable stuff. And we're pulling up so much heaviness that you have to feel so safe with the people who are doing it with you. But I do love doing it in a group because you're going to get so much more out of it. Okay, next question is, how do you practice any gifts you think you have, or try to find out which one you have? So if you guys search on here, you're going to find Claire tests. So Claire's are Claires, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance. You're going to find tests. And what you can do is you can actually test yourself on them. You'll find that you have a little bit of all of them. We all do. But one of them is going to be much stronger than the others. At least that's the way that it is at first. Whichever one is your strongest is the one that I recommend kind of pushing forward with and learning what to do with. I have some older videos on here that teach you how to really strengthen your clairs. I'll tell you one of my little tricks from them. So with claircognizance, which is just knowing things without knowing how you know them, one of my favorite tests for this and ways to strengthen it is to take a piece of paper and write down the seasons: winter, spring, summer, autumn. You take that, you cut it into 4 pieces, equal pieces, so you never know which one is which. Or you can take index cards, that way you make sure the paper is exactly the same size. You're gonna fold them really small. You're gonna mix them up so you don't know which one is which. And then you're gonna take them and hold them in your hands one by one. And without knowing what is in your hands, which piece of paper, you're gonna close your eyes. You're gonna check in with your body and your mind, and you're going to take a guess based on whatever you feel it is in your gut. Wait for the answer to kind of come up from your gut, not down from your head. And so let's say it's summer that comes through. You're going to check and see. You might be wrong. So you're going to keep practicing that every day for like 5 minutes a day until you start getting them all right all the time. And you will. With practice, you will. And then you just keep practicing it because it's like a muscle. The stronger it is, the better you're going to be at this stuff. And what you'll find is you're going to know that much more about the world around you without knowing how you know. You're going to say things where you're like, where did that come from? I don't even know why I said that. And the people around you are going to be like, oh my God, how'd you know that? Claircognizance. So just start to mess around with it and see. Wild Horses says, can you tell me my gifts? Absolutely not, because I would never ever take that experience away from you. Tap in and start to learn them for yourself. It's a beautiful, fun experience, and enjoy it and be playful. And you have all of the gifts. You literally have every single one of those. See which one feels the strongest. Dana says, I'm a therapist too. Something is missing. I felt that for so long. It was like something in my soul was like, we get them to a certain point and that feels good, but we're not all the way there. And then you just have to figure out the time that you part and kind of say, all right, it's time for us to terminate our sessions. You've got enough to go off on your own. But people would come back. Think about all the studies that show how often people come back to therapy years later, because we are not getting to the root. This gets to the root, and it is strong. Hey, Mandy. Okay, so any good protection spells? So my favorite thing to do for protection, and I think this is going to be the last one I'm going to answer for tonight, because it's getting kind of late over here. So good protection spell is that you are going to place a salt ring around you. I know it's a little old school, but I always feel like it's the best. Place a salt ring around you, get black tourmaline, and if you guys have never seen it, let me actually grab one for you. So black tourmaline is a rock that kind of looks like this. It's almost like you could peel back these layers. This is one of those that if you stuck it inside of water, it would be bad for you because the pieces of the rock, the sediments will actually come off. It's not healthy, so don't do that. What you're gonna do is you're gonna get 4 pieces of black tourmaline, put them around you either in the 4 corners or north, south, east, and west, whatever feels best. And then you're gonna rub your hands together in front of your heart, charging them up. You're gonna take a big breath in, big breath out. And as you breathe out, you were going to imagine that your aura is expanding out of you like a bubble. Almost like you were Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz. Feel that bubble pushing out and expanding. As you feel it pushing out and expanding, you can say out loud after you exhale, I am fully protected in my space. Nothing can come between me and the energy around me. And you just keep repeating that over and over again until you feel it. And you see that bubble so solid. So that's my favorite one. Tell me if you try it, how it works. Okay, so I said I wasn't going to answer any more. I swear these are going to be my last 3, but I feel like I have to. So Wild Horses missed it before when I said, what are my gifts? And my response was, try them all and see which one feels the best, because every single one of us has all of those gifts. Start to mess with it and see how it feels. Do you ever need to be concerned about negative energies and entities when meditating? So I did talk about this earlier on, but this is an important one. Sometimes heavier energies hang around us because our vibration matches theirs. So in the beginning, when you were just learning this stuff, it is undoubtedly going to happen that you are unintentionally going to connect with those heavier energies or entities. They are not evil. They are not out to hurt you or to get you. They're just energy vampires. You are like lunch for them. They're just going to suck up your energy. So yeah, it's something to be concerned about in the beginning, in the sense that you're going to feel a drain on you. They're not necessarily going to come when you're meditating if you set that protection spell around you and really create safe space. I'd also recommend, and this is a big if because you have to have the space to do it, I recommend having a space in your house, especially one if you can close doors behind you, that is used only for meditation and nothing else. Because when you do that, you're creating that safe space in such a way that no other energies follow you in, nothing follows you out. This is just your space. Okay, and then the last one that I said that I would answer is from Nicole, and is it possible to see future lives? Yes, and this is a really cool one to end on, so I love that this is going to be our last question. So you can absolutely see past lives, future lives, things that are happening parallel to you, because time is not linear in the way that we think that it is. I know that I call them past life regressions. Honestly, that's because it's the easiest way to refer to them, because it gets confusing to think about how intense time is and quantum and all that stuff. But if we think about time as being linear, it's like a flat line. I want you to start thinking about the possibility that time is more like a cake, like stacked up on top of itself. And so when we're doing past life work, we're just going from a higher level and dipping down. Like you're pulling down into one of those lower levels and pulling it up to where you are now. So in the same way that we can see the past, we can easily see the future, because we're just moving upwards in this, where we're reaching up through and pulling that down to where we are. Super easy to do and something I do all the time in my group program, Create Your Light Academy. Okay, so that is it for tonight. I'm going to go relax and drink a cup of tea. Thank you so much for joining me on this. If you haven't done so already, make sure you check out my Facebook group, The Clarity Club with Danielle Massi, because I do have tons of free trainings, 45 minutes long, an hour long, shadow work meditations, past life regression meditations, trainings on how to do this stuff, how to increase all of your spiritual gifts, all those clairs that we were talking about, and answers to questions you probably have. They're all there. And you can also pick up my shadow work journal that is on Amazon. It's called the Shadow Seekers Journal. It is your first step in trying shadow work for yourself. Because like I said before, you can do shadow work by yourself. It's something you have the ability to do. You have that gift. So start to explore those lower levels and really change your life in a way that is impactful and long-standing. All right, you guys, I love you all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye, everybody.